Hello student, I am Assistant Professor Yeshwant Bhora from Elja School of Law and today we'll be discussing about the topic of Indian Evidence Act, that is confession. In the last lecture we have discussed about the admissions. Now as we all know that admissions are used in a civil cases and confessions are used in the criminal cases. So from section 24 onwards there are provisions of confession in the Indian Evidence Act. And again, before moving further, in the confession, you will be seeing the types of confession and when the confession are valid confession and in what cases confessions are not the valid confessions. Now we'll move further and we'll go through the lecture and we'll understand the provisions which are mentioned under Indian Evidence Act. Now, before moving to section 24, we should know the definition of the confession, as the definition of the confession is not mentioned under Indian Evidence Act. Sir Justin Stephen, he has defined the confession as the confession is an admission made at any time by a person who is charged with the crime and who is stating or suggesting the inference that he has committed the crime. So the confession is, again I am repeating, that uh, it is an admission made at any time by a person who is charged with the crime. Now you have to underline, you have to emphasis on that particular term, who has charged with the crime, and again who is stating or giving any inferences which is that he has committed the crime. Okay, so now you must have understood the definition of confession. Now we'll be moving to section 24. So section 24 says that confession made by the accused person is irrelevant in a criminal proceedings if the confession appears to the court that have been caused by the inducement, threat, and promise having reference to the charge against the accused person. So you will see that if the confession is been made by the accused and it is relevant, why it is relevant? Because that confession has been you can say caused, or you can say brought up by the accused due to some inducement, due to some threat or some promise that the person will be charged for some lesser offense. Then in that case that particular confession which is made by the person in the criminal proceedings, the will not be it's not relevant, and the uh, court will say, or you can say the court will uh, tell that the confession is not a relevant confession. Now, in this particular case, the inducement, threat, or the promise should be with the reference to the charge only. The should be with reference to the charge only. It means that it should be uh, related to the person or to the accused for what offense he has charged. And again, the inducement, threat, or promise, it uh, should came from a person having authority over the charge, that uh, he is in the position to manipulate the accused. Now as we all know, or you must have seen in the movies, that the police ask the accused that you just confess your crime, and after confessing you will be getting the less punishment or lesser punishment, or will tell court to uh, give you lesser punishment for the offense which you have committed. Now this is the inducement, this is the threat, or this is the promise which has been made by the police officer or the person in charge to the accused, that if he confess his crime before the court, then in he that case the police or the person in charge promises that he will uh, request court to give him less punishment, or to set him free from all his charges. Now again you'll see the last three lines, it says that if the inducement the impact of inducement is that much that the accused thinks that if he confess before the court, or he if he confess the crime, then in that case he will be having advantage uh, to avoid any evil of the temporal nature in the reference to the proceedings against him. Now you must have got the idea of section 24. Now we'll be moving further, and again, as I said, the following conditions have to be satisfied in order to render a confession invalid. And we have discussed these conditions. It says that the confession must appear to the court and have been caused by any inducement, threat, or promise. Okay. Second, any such inducement, threat, or promise must have been reference to the charge against the accused person. Third, any such inducement, threat, or promise must proceed from the person in the authority or the person in the charge. And fourth, any such inducement, threat, and promise must be sufficient or sufficient enough in the opinion of the court to cause a reasonable belief in the mind of the accused that by making it he would gain advantage or avoid the evil of temporal nature. So all these conditions, if it is fulfilled, then in that case that particular confession will be termed as, or will be said as, invalid confession. Now moving further, you see the types of confession. Now there are in total there are three types of confession. As you can see, there are judicial confession, extrajudicial confession, and retracted confession. Now we'll be dealing this confession one by one. Now first is now judicial confession are those confession which are made before the court during the legal proceedings. Okay, which are made before the court during the legal proceedings, and in during, like in the continuance of legal proceedings, if the person confessed his crime, then it will be the judicial confession. Now for example, as a person who is has committed the offense of murder, and during the trial, in the beginning of the trial, he started confessing his guilt that yes, he had committed the murder of the deceased, or the murder of B, and in that case this confession will be termed as the judicial confession. Now judicial confessions can be made at any time of the legal proceedings or any time of the trial. Okay, so if that person in the middle of the trial, if he confesses that yes, I have committed the crime, and therefore this particular confession will be termed as the judicial confession. Now again, the evidentiary value of the judicial confession is very high. It is why it is high, because it is given by the accused himself, and it was not because of any threat, inducement, or any of the promises, as we have seen under section 24. Okay, so that is the reason the judicial confessions, evidentiary value of the judicial confessions are very high. Now moving to the second type of confession, that is extrajudicial confession. Now what are extrajudicial confession? The confession which has been made by the person who is accused of some crime before anyone or any group of person. It's not before the court, but it's before the anyone or any group of person. Then in that case, those types of confession will be termed as extrajudicial confession. Now for example, you see that A has committed some offense. Now in that case, committed the offense of theft. Now in that case, A comes when the complaint is filed, and he comes before the village. Then in that case, and the person from the villages ask him why he has committed such thing, then he comes out and says that I have done a mistake, and for them I am very sorry. Then in that case, this particular confession will be termed as extrajudicial confession. So again, I am saying that extrajudicial confession can be made before any person. It's not like to before made before the magistrate or the police. It can be made before the any person. And again, coming to the evidentiary value of the extrajudicial confession, it is very 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 vague. The purpose, the purpose behind this particular extrajudicial confession, why it is weak, because it can be changed at any time of the trial, as in it is not confessed by the person in the trial. Therefore the evidentiary value of the extrajudicial confession is very weak. Now moving further to retracted confession. Now, retracted confessions are those confessions which are made by the person or made by the accused in the beginning of the trial, that yes, he has committed the crime. But at the later stage of trial, he rejects that he has not committed the crime. Now, in that case, that confession of that person will not be what you say. Will not be maintainable before the court of law. Why? Because he has rejected or he has declined from his own confession. All these confessions will be termed as a retracted confession. So now I hope that you must have got the idea of all these three types of confessions. And now we'll be moving further towards section 25 and 26. Now section 25 and 26 talks about no confession made to a police officer shall be proved as an against the person accused to any offense. Now as you must have heard about the things that confession which is made before the police officer, or which is made in the presence of police officer, or which is made uh, in front of police officer will not be the valid confession, and it is not relevant confession. Okay, and it is again inadmissible. Okay, so confession which is made before the police officer will not be the again the valid confession by the person. It has to be made before the court or before the magistrate. Now why this particular confession before the police officer is not admissible or is not relevant? Because there might be the reason, as we have seen in the section 24, that there might be the threat, there might be inducement, and there might be the promise which is made by the police to regarding the confession. Okay, and in that threat, in that promise, or in that particular inducement, the person or the accused must have or might have made the confession. Now moving further, you'll see that section 21, it talks about that when any fact is deposed to as to discover the consequence of the information received from the person accused by an offense in the custody of police officers, so as much information, whether it amounts to confession or not, it relates to distinctly to the thereby discovered, may be proved. Now in this case, if like during the investigation the person says that I have committed the crime and I am accused of this particular of this crime, and I am very sorry that I have committed the crime. And now after that he says that uh, the weapon uh, through which or which I used to commit a crime, I have concealed that weapon in that particular tank, in the water tank, or I have concealed it under the tree, or you can say it is in my house, it is in my drawer, or I have killed him with that gun. Now all this information which is given by the accused to the police, okay, this particular informations will be termed as a disclosure statement. Okay, it will not be termed as a confession, and it will be termed as a disclosure statement which is given by the accused to the police. And again, by acting on those statement, if police found anything, then in that case the police will submit that particular evidences before the court in the trial, and the this will surely, or this may help the police to get the guilt, or to make the accused guilty of the particular crime. Now moving further, section 28, it says that when the confession has been made after removal or of threat, inducement, or promise, then in that case that confession will be the valid confession. As again we studied about the threat, inducement, and the promise under section 24. Now all these things have been removed, then in that case that particular confession will be the relevant confession. Now how it has been proved that this confession will be the relevant confession? Now the person will be confessing himself or confessing in the court of law during the trial, as in say the judicial confession, and before confession the judge will tell them that you should know that whatever you're confessing may go against you, and if you are all right and if you know all the consequences, then in that case you can confess your crimes. Otherwise it is not really there is a need to confess the crime. So if the accused says that no, I want to confess my crime and I know all the consequences, and again there is no inducement, threat or promise which is mentioned in the section 24, and he is free from all the threats, uh, and not he, that the confession is free from all the from the threat, inducement and promise, then in that case that confession will be termed as a relevant confession. Now section 29 talks about if the confession is otherwise relevant, it does not become irrelevant merely because now the confession is not been hit by section 24, 25, 26. Okay, and again the confession is relevant. Now what kind of confession can be, what can be this kind of confession? It is some kind of extrajudicial confession. Now again these confession are relevant confession. Okay, extrajudicial confessions are relevant confession, but they will not become irrelevant merely because first it was made under a promise of secrecy, second in consequence of a deception practiced on the accused person for the purpose of obtaining it, third when he was drunk, fourth because it has been made in answer to a question which he need not have answered, whatever may have been in the form of those questions, and fifth because he was not warned that he was not bound to make such confession and that evidence of it might be given against him. Now all these five situations, if in these situations if the confession has been made, then the confession will not become irrelevant confession and it will be a relevant confession. Now moving further to section 30. Section 30 talks about that when more person than one are being jointly or jointly tried, as we all know that if in case there are more than one person tried for an offense, then among from that one person, if suppose there are two persons, okay, who are tried together for the particular crime which they have committed. Now from that one person, from the two person, one person confessed his crime, that yes we had committed this crime, and the confession is again is free, and it is like there is no inducement, threat or promise in that confession, therefore the confession is relevant. Now what will happen to the another person, whether that confession will be applicable to that person or not? In that case the confession will be applicable to that person also. Now again, to get the provisions of section 30, there must be two things which must be proved or which must be there for the applicability of this particular section. Now the first is that the trial should be joined, and the second is the accused being tried for the same offenses. Okay, these two conditions must be fulfilled, otherwise this particular confession will not be work will not work for the co-accused or the person who other another person who is accused for the offense. Now I hope that you must have got the idea or the concept of the confession between section 24 to section 30. And if in case you have any doubt, you can ask me in the comment box, and your doubts will be resolved as soon as possible. And before finishing this lecture, I'll suggest the students to please keep one Bayret with them, and that will help them a lot to understand the sections, and it will be easier for them to understand the section. So now I'll take your leave and see you in the next lecture. Till then, take care of yourself and thank you.